mission or vision of mine. Okay, so having said that, let me just move into this concept of self-image. And I wanted to give it sort of more emphasis and importance, like I was talking about it yesterday. Self-confidence is, of course, linked to self-image. Self-image is linked to self-confidence. How we see ourselves in the mirror is what is self-image. When you look at the mirror, what do you really think about yourself? You know, do you avoid looking at yourself in the mirror? Does this happen? Uh, you know, sometimes people hesitate sort of looking at themselves in the mirror, you know, so the so it just becomes very important. Your self-image is related to what you see when you look in a mirror, and it refers to how we see ourselves on a more global level. So it's really deep. It's not just about looking in the mirror and seeing how beautiful you are or not, but there are a lot of thoughts, emotions, you know, that's got sort of impressions that's settled in your mind, which is making you feel or act in a particular way when you look at yourself in the mirror. So, so what we need to understand here. So today, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be talking a little more about certain symptoms of self-image. You know, if you have lack of self-image, how it would be and things like that. So self-image as the idea is actually the idea, conception, or mental image one has of oneself. And the mental image actually boils down into the way you feel about yourself physically, emotionally, as I've already explained, right? So, what is the meaning of self-image? And that mirror out there, that you know, the picture out there very clearly says that. While I'm saying that when you're looking at the mirror, how you see yourself, that is one aspect to it. If you have any other thoughts to what else do you think, you can you know, type it in there, or you can even unmute and let me know. So what I'm also getting at here is it's about impressions. It's about certain impressions that are already there in your mind. This is, I want to really emphasize on this. So number, and you know, this is what I do in my uh, level 2, which is about the 6 insights of the brain and how those impressions or how those wirings are formed, right? So the self impressions that have built up over time. And these self images can be very positive, giving a person confidence, or it could be like sort of very negative, making a person doubtful of their capabilities itself, their skills, their ideas, even at the level of, you know, certain ideas at the thought level, you know, they start doubting themselves because it's like it's there since a very, very long time. And that's why many times it becomes difficult to sort of, you know, shake it up and bring what you really want to, because it's wired. Because once wired is wired forever, right? So uh, having said that, I just wanted to bring in a little bit self-image versus self-esteem. This could be a little, you don't really need to know the difference, but the linkage between self-image and because self-esteem has all the three: self-confidence, self-identity, and self-acceptance, right? If you remember, self-esteem has all three. So self-image versus self-esteem, the image part of us is taken out, and we're trying to compare it with self-esteem, which has three concepts to it. There is a direct linkage. How we see ourselves is a big contribution factor to how we feel about ourselves. Right? So negative self-image can certainly influence self-esteem. Okay, low self-esteem is likely to be accompanied by a negative self-image. So there is a direct linkage in that sense, but they are independent of each other. It may be a little confusing, but what I'm trying to say is image is found out of, you know, so many impressions that has been formed over a period of time, through which there is a self-esteem created. So the image that you create when you look at yourself right from childhood, that is like so, and that negative image can influence the self-esteem that you have today, which is linked to confidence, acceptance, and identity. So first, low self-esteem is likely to accompany by a negative. So they are directly correlated, but image comes first and then esteem comes next, because it's through these images and impressions that you make in your mind. What you see yourself in the mirror, feel about yourself in terms of mind, body, emotions, that leads to a lower self-esteem. So that's why while they're high, they're really interlinked, they are independent. So it could be confusing, but we need to work on our self-image so that it impacts the self-esteem. Are you with me on this? We need to work on the self-image so that it directly impacts the self-esteem. As self-esteem has three things under it: confidence, identity, and acceptance. So working on image is linked way back to our history, the way we have seen ourselves right from childhood, right? So because physical is memorable, I keep saying this, physical is memorable. So the way we see ourselves in the mirror um, is linked to the thoughts, it's linked to your emotions and your actions. I call it as T: thoughts, emotions, actions. Okay. So I wanted to discuss about 3 elements and 6 dimensions of self-image. Very, very simple. Okay. No rocket science. But if we understand these, as I said, at the end of it, we will be more sort of in a position to say that no when it needs to be. Because at the end of the day, we realize that understanding all of this is actually really digging into ourselves and therefore becoming more self-reliant. So the last day, I'm going to be talking about how to become self-reliant. The last day, I'll give you certain points. Okay. And of course, before that, I'm going to be also taking a session on assertiveness, learning to say no, learning when to say no, and few other concepts on self, which is self-respect and self-compassion. Okay. And some exercises on self-compassion. Now, the elements these are the 3 elements: the way a person perceives or thinks of him or herself, the way a person interprets others' perceptions of him or herself, and this is exactly what I do in this assessment, which is Pyro-B, and people who have taken it in the one-to-one coaching understand themselves and understand what actually interpersonal actually what it means, and then where are you in terms of 3 areas of inclusion, control, and affection, and very, very good for compatibility, whether with your own partners or whether with your own team members. So the way a person would like to be his ideal self. So, you can help using Pyro-B, which is what I do in my one-to-one. One of the interventions that I do in my one-to-one is Pyro-B. You can also build and maneuver yourself and helping yourself and also maneuvering it with others. How can you sort of do that? Because it's another sort of a digging that you do. Because how a person interprets others' perceptions, and therefore how does that interpersonal interaction happen, and what is interpersonal interaction, all of that comes under Pyro. So the 3 elements is the way a person perceives or thinks of him / herself, the way a person interprets others' perceptions. This is the 3 elements of self-image. Please remember, and the way a person would like to be his or her ideal self. Okay. So the 6 dimensions of a person's self-image, this is something that I've already said. Physical dimension, psychological dimension, like mind, body, um, intellectual dimension, skill dimension, moral dimension. There's also sexual dimension, transgenders, and accepting how a person feels he or she fits into society's masculine and feminine norms. Very, very important. Nowadays, there is more awareness around this, but extremely important. So moral dimension, how a person evaluates his or her values and principles. Skills, how competent do you feel about yourself? What are the kind of skills you have? How a person evaluates? And this is something that we can get when we do our value assessment. Value assessment brings in, because your values will be linked to any of these dimensions. What are your values? That's also something I do in my one-to-one coaching, which value assessment brings in some of these dimensions, if not all, because these are something that you are hungry for. 6 dimensions of a person's self-image. All of these dimensions you definitely are hungry for. If you're not expressive of all, it could, and that is linked to your values in some sense. Okay, so this is the 6 dimensions of a person's self-image, and these elements and dimensions, it's like offering a framework through which to view self-image, to view yourself. When you look at yourself in the mirror, you're suddenly thinking about all of this unconsciously. Obviously, it's not like somewhere like notes that, but you start thinking about these things, and this is what research, positive psychologists, neuroscientists are coming up to tell us, that when you're looking yourself in the mirror, you're talking about elements and the 6 dimensions, and somewhere it's linked to our impressions that we have formed way back, right from our childhood to till the time we become an adult, and those impressions that create the image. That's why it becomes very important, uh, to look at the self-image, because that's directly then linked to self-esteem. Okay, so this is like one possible way of thinking about self-image. It's not only dating; you'll find a lot more things. But what I'm bringing is this one possible way. These 3 elements and 6 dimensions are, it's one possible way of looking at your of the way you think, feel about yourself when you look at yourself in the mirror. Okay, it's as simple as that. But it's much deeper than that. While I'm saying it's not just looking at yourself in the mirror, but it's deeper than that, right? So 10 examples of positive and negative self-image. What are those 10 examples? So you can see it. It's there in the slide. A positive self-image is having a good view of yourself. For example, seeing a happy, healthy person when you look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror, you feel good. There are people say, "Oh, I really like you. I really like the way you look." Having an image of yourself as a smart and intelligent. So, what are the kind of images? See, the brain, the way it works is it actually forms those images. Visual works very well. So it's actually forming those images before you decide what you are. So believing that you are at least somewhat close to your ideal version of yourself. When you look at yourself, do you feel that way? Seeing yourself as an attractive and a desirable. Oh, I look good. Sometimes when you look at you feel you look good, right? There are days when you feel, oh my God, right? So thinking that others perceive you as all of the above as well as yourself, that's very important. The last line is extremely important. While you look at yourself, you feel happy, you believe that, oh, okay, you're looking ideal. You also think that others feel the same way about you. That's where it becomes a positive self-image. But the negative one is having an image of yourself as a stupid person, as a person who always makes mistakes, as an unattractive and undesirable. And if you look at what the 23 ones that I gave you yesterday, one of the things in that is smile. One of the things that is grooming yourself, dressing attractive. Okay, whenever it is required, we need to do that. So having an image of yourself as a stupid and unintelligent, not at all attractive, seeing yourself as undesirable. Then some people actually, this is the truth, they don't want to look at themselves in the mirror. They feel that they're not at all attractive, not lookable. Believing that you're nowhere near your ideal, nowhere near your ideal version. Thinking that others also perceive like that about you. See, the biggest thing is the last statement in both the aspects. That one is you yourself think that this is the image. But the second thing is you believe that even others think about it. And the whole thing is you don't even know what others are thinking about yourself, but then you believe that this is how others think of you. And that's where it's the biggest like sort of problem that you create for yourself, and yourself, therefore, image and esteem goes down. Are you all with me? If you are, you can just say yes in the comments box, or you can unmute and say yes. That's also fine. Okay, so we need to be very, very aware of when we look at the mirror. And we do it every day. We brush our teeth. We probably are putting some makeup. You're like trying to comb your hair. Have you ever looked into your own eyes when you are in looking at yourself in the mirror and assessed how you feel about yourself? Just try it. I've done this. This is as part of one of the training programs in sort of overcoming my own, whatever I went through. We were asked to do this. Just try doing it. Look at yourself into the eyes of your own eyes into the mirror and see how it feels. Is it positive self-image or is it negative self-image? What are the kind of images that you have in your mind? Okay, so this is definitely, and that's actually one of the exercises that you got to do today. The importance of positive self-image is taking a higher precedence than self-esteem. Okay, while you say in self-esteem you have self-identity, self-confidence, and self-acceptance, but and self-image is directly linked to self-esteem, but self-image is given a higher precedence. So having a distorted self-image means that you have a view that's of yourself which is not the reality. You start believing that you are like this, especially if it's negative. You start believing that this is how people think about you. So that's why I'm emphasizing on how important it is to have a positive self-image. Okay, and the symptoms of people start feeling, oh my God, I'm like this, and this is not okay. They go to the level of looking everything, like, at first is at the body level, right? Physical is memorable. They start looking at the body, they start looking at the nails, simple things. I mean, this is a lot more in the West, but it's also happening very much in our cultures, and especially with teenagers. Seeking surgery, checking in the mirror, going again and again, checking in the mirror, avoiding mirrors, okay, comparing body parts to others' appearances. Oh, I don't know, whatever. So there has to be a particular size and shape to everything. So keep on comparing with body position, clothing, makeup, hair, all this becomes extremely important more than anyone. Then there is an issue. You get so obsessive about it. Excessive exercise, that's also an issue. Oh my God. In fact, I'll tell you, sometimes I get into this excessive exercise mode and my husband says, okay, relax, it's okay if you don't exercise today. Somehow I was brought up in a family where this is, because I'm from the army background and things like that, it was there in our family. My father used to walk, used to run, play tennis and things like that. So it's like it becomes so much rooted in me. And so if I don't do it, I feel, oh, something is really wrong. So if you don't do it for a day or two, it's fine. But if you get obsessive about it, then it's basically, there can be a diagnosis done. And this is, of course, more in the West, but it's coming to India, very much prevalent in India. Excessive grooming all the time, worried about the right lipstick, the right earrings, the right everything, feminine all the time. A problem. Seeking surgery, looking at the celebrities, looking at Instagram, looking at Facebook, looking at the figures and saying, I need to have all of that. Right. So sometimes people go to the extent of taking loans to, for that, whatever perfect 36, 24, 36 kind of a thing that needs to be. So we need to be very, very careful about, especially teenagers and how we deal with that. That is one. After a period of time, even women, especially after pregnancy, after you have a baby, that is another part of it. The image, goes down looking at ourselves because we put on weight after the baby. And then to get out of it becomes so difficult. That's the other story of life, especially very, very relevant with women. That I'm not able to get back to my original self. I used to look so good, now I'm put on so much weight. And we just go on in that chatter and we live in it, resulting to a negative self-image. Okay, so changing clothes excessively, ladies, do you see this? Even deciding on which clothes that you have to wear and continuously changing it. Not too picky. So it's okay. We need to groom ourselves. We need to look attractive, but this is what I'm getting. So there is something called body dysmorphic disorder, like body image disorder, characterized by persistent and intrusive preoccupations with an imagine or slight defect in one's appearance. Always there is a feeling that I am not okay. The size of my hand, arm is not correct. Maybe too much to say, but this is where we can, and too much of everything can be anyway an issue. How you do one thing is how you do everything. This is one beautiful phrase, that makes a lot of sense. How you do one thing is how you do everything. So it might just percolate into everything, even the little things that you do. Okay. So importance, that's why of self-image, positive self-image is extremely something you need to be conscious about and see if you're like, there is a scale, are you going too much to that side or too much to this side? Okay, so that's one aspect. Unstable self-image, there are a whole list of things there. Hostility, feeling of isolation, boredom, emptiness, persistent fear of abandonment, rejection. Rejection will be there in life, ladies. We need to know how to, without rejection, there is no success. Without fear of failure, there is no success. Every day I go through it. Okay. So rejection has to be there. So if you feel that, okay, I'm not going to get, and you're going to prepare so much that you don't get rejected, for example, in a presentation, I wish I don't get rejected, then it's not a good presentation. It needs to get rejected. There has to be failure. So difficulty feeling empathy for others, not able to relate to feelings of your own self and others. Intense, highly changeable moods that can last for several days or just a few hours. Depends, right? There's some people who get back takes them 2, 3, 4, sometimes a week, right? Impulsive, risky, self-destructive. These are of course extremes. Okay, see that these are certain symptoms we need to be aware of, and accordingly see what you can do about it. Seek for help. Okay, so unstable careers. This can be other thing. People keep changing jobs. If you see, and there are a few people, financial, what do you call changing of jobs is one, and in the financial stability part, there are these people who have low self-image. They keep borrowing money. They might have money, but it becomes just a habit for them to keep borrowing money because of um, some kind of an image that has some kind of an incident that has happened in the past or in the childhood that makes them to do that more and more. So they might even have trouble seeing their past self, the present self, and the future self as the same person. You are, like I keep saying, is what you were 16 when you were 16, what you are when you're 30, when you're 40, 50 is going to be different. But not able to accept that we are changing as an individual. Today I'm great. It took me a lot of time to accept this. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying you should not color your hair or whatever, but I'm saying 16 years, today I'm 49 years. And there is a vast change. And I can't be like how I was in 16. Okay, there may be elements of, the youth jump and whatever. But the point that I'm trying to say is we should be able to accept that 16 years that when you're able to accept today, and future you're only going to get older and you're going to get wiser. So how are we going to be prepared for this? When we look at our parents today, and when we look at people who are older and wiser, sometimes there is a lot of anxiety around this. I've seen a lot of people very, very anxious about, oh my God, I don't want to be as old and look like that. They are not able to accept that they actually will become like that someday, right? So these are some things mentally you can just keep it in your mind and not really think so much about it. When it happens, you can cross the bridge. But it's important that we are aware that we will be different from what we were in the past to what we are today to what we are going to be in the future, and for the good. If you are not able to accept these, it's going to be very difficult. It will be symptoms of self-image. Why I'm bringing the looks here is that becomes a lot of people find it very difficult to accept. When I was in Philippines, for them, what was very important is physical. We all like to dress. We all like to look good. It's good to do that. But there, one of the things that I would see is too much of attention given to physical or the self-image at the physical dimension, that, women especially, and there they were 80% of the population women, only 20% were men. And you would find a lot of transgenders there because men actually grew up in a women's setup and they would like to become finally like them because they've grown, did not have fathers' influences and things like that. But women, if they do not look good, and older women, they would have, I'm done, my life is over. These would be the kind of statements because the moment you become older, they feel they're over, everything is over. This is too much of, only to one dimension of life. Love and sex and probably only looking good. Okay, so this is something we need to start getting aware. Now, 9 interesting statistics and facts. Okay, one study conducted a test on women. 3 out of 4 said that they were overweight. Only 1 out of 4 really was. These may not be very, very relevant to our culture, but definitely there. Okay. After viewing images of fashion models, 7 out of 10 women felt more depressed and angrier than before. Okay. This sometimes when I look at them, I feel, oh my God, look at them. But that's their job, right? Anorexia nervosa and eating disorder has the highest mortality rate at all psychiatric illnesses. So these are people, who put their hands in their mouth and vomit because they want to look always thin and really thin. I knew of a friend of mine who told me she had this, and I was very surprised because when I met her, she was very, very stable. But she said, I went through that. So they just don't want to put that little bit of weight. In advertising, the body type of models, which is portrayed as ideal, is naturally possessed by only 5% of American women. This is American data, but just keep it in mind. Only 1 out of 10 high school students are overweight, but 9 out of 10 are already on a type of diet. So this is Western influences are very much happening in today's international schools, and how we cope with that. How are we going to deal with teenagers who engage in unprotected sex, which results in unwanted pregnancy, often have poor self-images. This is becoming very prevalent in India. There was certain news in Oak Ridge and few other schools. Nothing, say anything about Oak Ridge as an institution, but overall, I'm saying it's very sort of prevalent in India, right? 2, there are fewer cases of men with eating disorders because of the perceptions that they are women's diseases. It's very important that looking good and always being in shape is more for a woman's thing, not a man's thing. Nowadays, you see men also grooming themselves up. There is a change that you see. There is another revolution around that, especially this generation, especially my daughter's generation, I must say. Very, very okay with men say wearing skirts. They say, why can't they wear skirts? I mean, I have these conversations with my daughter, and for me, it's difficult to digest. So these are kind of things that are very, very commonly discussed in that population. Today's media greatly influences self-image of teenagers. They are told that their values related to how thin or muscular they are. You see that Bollywood actresses, actors, lot of focus on the way they look, which is good, but only that is a problem. That's where I'm getting it. I'm not saying you should not look good. I'm not saying you should not exercise, but look at where we having a balance. So the self-image maintenance and discriminatory behavior evidence showed that prejudice develops from a person's need to justify a threatened perception of the self. So this is okay. So this is so. In my course, and getting into my, if you want to get into my community, what I'm going to be doing is exercises to increase self-image toolkit, which will have 8 exercises to increase self-image, how to help build a positive self-image in child development. There are some things that around that, and how to help build a positive self-image in adolescents. So these are 3 things, quick and nice exercises for all the 3 categories: adults, children, and that ones who get into my community. Okay. Then another aspect that I wanted to bring out, of course, next is our affirmation. So that brings me to the end of this particular beautiful self-image kind of whatever session that we had, and the importance of it, and how we need to bring in as a first aspect, though it is linked to self-esteem. And with, if you have a good self-image, It gives a better self-esteem and therefore confidence, identity, and acceptance. Because under self-esteem, you have three categories. Still, this is given a higher preference. Okay, so let's do that's a beautiful quote, from Ralph. I love his quotes. What lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. So the self-image actually doesn't matter over a period of time at all, right? So what is within us? Now, but the impressions that we have created of self since early childhood, we need to get aware of it and overcome it. So the affirmations, I release the need to judge myself negatively. So we will say that together, like we do every time, like we did in every class. And the assignment is you have to look at yourself in the mirror and laugh at yourself and say what you are going to do today. Like, what I mean is you just laugh at yourself and then you just say what are you going to do today? Say, what I mean by this is say aspects that you would get on to saying aspects that you would do today. Okay. This is what I mean by that, right? So, I'll do a 3, 2, 1, and I'm going to put some cool. Okay, so we'll do this. I'll do a 3, 2, 1, and let's healthy affirmation together. I release the need to judge myself negatively. I release the need to judge myself negatively. I release the need to judge myself negatively. To do it at a go for 3 times. The moment I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, you're going to say 3 times and after you say it's the first time, give it a gap. Then the second time, and then the third time. Okay, so I'm going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
I realize the need to judge myself negatively.
Second time.
I release
the need to judge myself negatively.
Beautiful. Third time.
I release the need to judge myself negatively.
Beautiful. Okay, the looks like the electricity is gone a little bit back. Okay, so say this, and once you do that, let's get on to okay, the assignment. Please do this. If you can do this every day, it will give a lot of you will start looking at yourself in a very different way. And when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, please look into the eyes and then laugh at yourself and say aspects that you are going to be doing that day. And I'm not able to put this properly. Laugh at yourself and say aspects that you would be doing. Okay, so I hope the assignment is clear. Look into the mirror, look at yourself in your eyes, laugh at yourself. You need to be able to laugh at yourself in a, even, and see what's happening. Okay, and then say aspects that are going to be okay, Aparna. Okay, Anusha, how are you doing? And today I'm going to be doing this. But it's like actually you're talking to yourself. You start seeing what's the kind of self-image you have about yourself. You'll be able to understand whether it is in the negative, is it the positive, or you have a neutral image. You will be able to understand that the more you're doing it, see that if you start facing yourself, right, it's a very different experience. When I did this the first time, I was so uncomfortable. I mean, I love doing it and looking at your own eyes, into your own eyes. Just try doing it, okay? Wonderful. Look at yourself in the mirror and laugh at yourself and say aspects that you would be doing that day. Okay, I'm going to be doing this today. How are you feeling? Or something like that. I hope you understand that. So wonderful. So I think it's 5:40 and a wonderful thing.
I just wanted to call out something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I looked at this Ralph Waldo Emerson's quote, right? So we had this as a wall hanging in our house.
Oh, really? Wonderful.
Yeah, all of my childhood I've seen this, but it's so weird. I didn't realize what it is actually until I joined the community.
Oh, very nice. So thanks for sharing. Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's right there and we don't know.
Exactly.
Thanks for sharing.
Yep.
Okay, so it's good that somehow I've picked this, right? I've picked this
a nice one
for you to see. It's a very nice one.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So it's so deep. Actually, the self-image part is really deep. Thanks, Anusha, for sharing. And it's not just about looking good, right? It's about the impressions that you form over a period of time. Wonderful, ladies. Thank you so much and see you tomorrow, 5 p.m. So tomorrow I'm going to be taking, I think it's going to be self-compassion or there's something else. Okay, self-respect. Sorry. Tomorrow is going to be self-respect. And then over a period of time, towards the end, I'm going to be taking things like learn when to say a no, assertiveness, and then how to be self-reliant. So you'll anyway know at the end of the day as to what is there for the next day. Thank you. Take care. Bye. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.